Hey guys, welcome back to Unexplained and Unexplored. Helping me with today's video is my good friend, Jack Mitchell.
Hi.
Now, we all love a good scary story, whether it be told from movies, TV shows, books, or by mouth. However, in recent years, a new way to share these terrifying tales has emerged: the internet.
The internet has now allowed us to pass around vast amounts of content with each other, including creepypastas. Creepypastas are just internet myths or urban legends that spread around to other sites. The only goal is to frighten readers, and although most are fake, you do have the curiosity just itching and burning in the back of your mind, making you question if by chance these horrors you hear could be real.
That these parallel Earths are colliding and intertwining all the time.
Most of you probably are familiar with the famous Nickelodeon children's cartoon, SpongeBob SquarePants. This popular animated TV show has close to 236 episodes and counting. Well, 236 episodes ever released. According to the well-known Creepypasta, there's a lost episode of SpongeBob, albeit without the regular fun and goofy theme the show is associated with.
This haunting episode begins with the happy, poppy music over a title card displaying the text Squidward's suicide, before we pan over Squidward preparing for a concert. SpongeBob soon starts annoying his neighbor with his usual antics. After getting yelled at by Squidward, the yellow sponge then goes off with his best friend, Patrick, to see Sandy. As the episode goes on, we transition Squidward after his failed concert. The crowd starts booing, but not the normal cartoon booing. You can see the hatred from the audience. But something's off. The animated eyes are replaced with red, detailed ones. After the concert, we see Squidward on his bed, just staring for a few seconds. Then, he places his hands over his eyes, begins to cry. The sound of sobbing, filled with so much emotion, of hurt and anger, isn't the only noise though. Eerie, distorted music is in the background, along with something seemingly much more sinister. Faint laughter can be heard, piercing through the crying and background music. Then, only for one frame, a horrific picture is shown. A dead child, no older than age 6, is seen. The episode then flashes back to Squidward, still sobbing. However, blood was now dripping out of his eyes. Another still photo flashes across the screen, and another dead child is shown. When Squidward came back into frame, he had stopped crying. All sound had also come to a sudden halt.
He then lowers his tentacles and stares at the screen, almost as if he's watching the viewer with his bloodied, pulsating eyes. After about 10 seconds, he begins to cry again. He's wailing at this point, the sound being excruciatingly loud. And screams are mixed in, tears and blood were dripping down his face at this point. And then the laughing proceeded. 5 more frames of dead children were added at this time, sequenced as if in a video. It soon cuts back to Squidward seemingly staring at the viewer again. The sound was gone as well. We then hear a deep voice say, "Do it." And Squidward takes a shotgun, puts the barrel in his mouth, and pulls the trigger. We see his body on his bed, bloody. The episode then fades to black, ending this hellish nightmare.
Everyone needs sleep, and the human body can only go so many days without rest. Well, in the 1940s, Russian scientists tried to keep 5 people awake for 15 days without any sleep. They planned to do this using an experimental gas, an oxygen and nitrogen mix. The scientists filled the room with participants, food to last them over a month, running water, cots, and books. The room had microphones and 5-inch thick glass windows the size of portholes. Little did they know how horrible this experiment would go for everyone involved.
For the first few days, everything was fine. The participants talked to each other about various things. However, after the fourth day, the conversations began to get a darker tone. On day 5, the test subjects started talking about the situations that led them there. You see, the 5 participants were all political prisoners, deemed enemies of the state. They also each started becoming paranoid and stopped talking to one another, only communicating by whispering in the mics. On day 9, one of the subjects started screaming at the top of his lungs, running around the room. He screamed so much that after 3 hours he tore his vocal cords. Oddly enough, the other captives didn't even react. Eventually, one of the other subjects broke down as well and began screaming non-stop. The 2 then ripped apart books and even smeared their own feces all over them. Then, there was silence. The screams stopped. And so does the whispering in the mics.
3 days passed, and still there's no sound coming from the mics. The researchers checked the microphones to see if they were broke. The mics worked fine, and there was enough oxygen in the chamber to keep the subjects alive. On the 14th day, the scientists used the intercom system to provoke a reaction out of the subjects. They said they were checking the mics and to stand away from the door. Complying would lead to one of their immediate freedom. Shockingly, they got a response, although an unexpected one. One of the patients, in a calm voice, replied with, "We no longer want to be freed."
The researchers went into the chamber on the 15th day. They sent in Russian soldiers to extract the patients. Of course, what they found was something straight from a horror novel. Only 4 of the 5 subjects were still alive. However, one might consider death to be better than what the 4 patients had experienced.
They each had flesh ripped away from their bodies, and upon closer inspection, it was evident that these wounds were self-inflicted. Even some abdominal organs had been removed and laying on the ground. One of the most disturbing facts was that the subjects had eaten the torn away flesh. The subjects were also begging for the scientists to turn the gas back on, pleading as if they lost a loved one.
The Russian soldiers that were sent in were attacked by the subjects. One even had his throat ripped out. Another committed suicide a few weeks after the incident. One of the subjects' spleen had been ruptured during the attack and began bleeding out while doctors tried sedating him, injecting him with 10 times the amount of morphine dose for humans. Still, he fought like a cornered animal, screaming the word "more" until they finally died.
The 3 surviving patients were taken to get medical treatment, which didn't go so well. The first patient died as soon as they put him under with anesthesia. The second patient was the first subject to start screaming. Therefore, he couldn't deny surgery. They decided they were going to attempt to complete his surgery without any anesthetics. The surgeon had repeatedly said that the subject should have died. However, when the surgery was over, he was alive. He began to wheeze, so doctors gave him a pen and paper to write down what he was trying to say. The message he wrote was short and simple. Keep cutting.
The last subject was given the same surgery. When asked why he had ripped out his own guts and flesh, he replied, "I must remain awake." The researchers decided to put the remaining subjects back in the chamber and given the same gas, which kept them awake. They were about to lock the door to the chamber when the researchers shot and killed everyone except for one subject. His curiosity consumed him, and he turned to the last subject and asked, "What are you?" His reply would send shivers down everyone's back. "Have you forgotten so easily?" the subject asked. "We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread."
The researcher then proceeded to shoot the subject. As the life slipped from him, he was barely able to mutter his last words. So, nearly freed. Many of you have probably heard of or seen the Slenderman movie that came out in early August of last year. The movie is based on two horrifying stories. The first is a tale from Germanic folklore, where there's a fairy known as Der Grossesmann, or the Tall Man. The fairy would haunt the souls of children who played in the dark forest, such as the forest in the Creepypasta and in the movie.
One of the amazingly terrifying tales about this fairy is about a child named Lars. Lars was said to have played in the dark forest and didn't come home until a day later than he had left before. The child came back screaming in terror about Der Grossesmann, and for weeks he told his father that he needed to leave. That was until Lars mysteriously went missing and was never found again. The creepypasta that was used in the movie is called I Will Never Forget Him, in which the narrator tells a tale about a tall, shadow-like figure gliding over a lake and forest without even touching the water. The narrator would then go on to have hallucinations and night terrors about this figure that she saw. One of the hallucinations was when she was trying to sleep, and she saw the Slenderman standing right next to her. She cried screaming, but failed to do so. She described it as if it was the Slenderman who was preventing her from screaming all along. She soon fainted from fear, only to wake up the next morning. This creepypasta leaves us with a cliffhanger, so we never know what happens to them. Was she able to get rid of these hallucinations? Or was she just like any other victim of the Slenderman?
These stories are just that, made-up myths that people create just to get a good scare.
However, don't spend too long thinking about if these legends are fake or if they could bear some truth to them. You wouldn't get enough sleep at night.
And until next time,
Bye.
In a world where technology plays such a prominent role, it's important to know what price you pay for the free internet.